Police and prosecutors are seeing a disturbing development in the city's gang shootings. For the first time, more of the trigger pullers and some of the leaders or shot callers are teen girls. Brianna Portalatin, 8 months pregnant, was among other suspects brought out from a sort of criminal commune in a Bronx apartment. She was in handcuffs again.
Nay Benz, police say you're a trigger puller. Police say you're a trigger puller. Is that true? What? Police say you're a trigger puller.
That's aspiring drill rapper Nay Benz, who police say is one of the gang leaders. The average age of the case subjects is 20. Teen girls are trigger pullers too.
This is one of the most violent crews that I've seen.
So here's something wild to wrap your head around. Female notorious gangsters in a city like New York. Who would ever have thought that would be a thing? Well, they are known as the Slattery Gang. If you haven't heard of them, they're a brutal crew based in NYC, with a core group of young girls neck deep in gun violence and criminal activity.
That's aspiring drill rapper Nay Benz, who police say is one of the gang leaders. The average age of the case subjects is 20. Teen girls are trigger pullers too.
And here's the real shocker. Many of them are teenage girls. Let's dive in. The Slattery Gang, often referred to as Slattery or S-Block, has a reputation for being particularly ruthless, with several young girls, especially teens, under its control. This gang, allegedly responsible for more than a dozen shootings and attempted in the Fordham neighborhood, has become a symbol of violence and fear in the area.
Around from 2 on, that's when it fills up with all the gangs.
According to reports from Fox 5, there's been a shocking rise in the number of teen girls not just joining gangs in New York, but also actively using firearms. What's even more surprising is that these girls have reportedly fired guns multiple times in real-life confrontations, as if there's some kind of competition to see who can shoot more.
It's almost like they were competing with each other to see who could shoot more.
The situation is so concerning that the average age of suspected gang members is only 20, with some, like 18-year-old Nay Benz, and some even younger.
The average age of the case subjects is 20. Teen girls are trigger pullers too.
Nay Benz, whose real name is Nadine Asamoah, is thought to be the leader of this infamous sect. The Slattery Gang has gained notoriety for wreaking havoc in the Fordham section of the Bronx, and Benz herself has become a prominent figure in this chaotic world. Back in July 2022, she was arrested and sent to the Brookwood Juvenile Facility. While there, she lost a finger, although she never fully explained how it happened. But rumors spread quickly on the streets, with many believing it was a result of her deep involvement in gang activities.
They just love my 4 fingers. I don't know why, but my 4 fingers love them too.
Do you care to tell like how that happened, like the story behind it?
Nah, that's heavy.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah.
Just know, like, everybody got different stories to it. Nobody really know what happened.
After her release from Brookwood, Benz jumped into the drill music scene, using her lyrics to reveal details of her criminal behavior. Her music has racked up millions of views online, and she's become a controversial figure, with many accusing her of using her platform to glorify violence. Benz, when asked what kind of image she's trying to portray, simply replied, "I'm just me." When pressed further about her ties to the Slattery Gang and the neighborhood she comes from, she added, "We're the real definition of loyalty over here."
With the hammer you flow like who? They must forgot what the actually do. With the beam flow like Katie.
Her criminal activities, however, didn't stop there. In July, Benz was arrested again as part of a massive 176-count conspiracy indictment. This latest arrest wasn't just about the shootings linked to the Slattery Gang, but also the gang's disturbing habit of using their music to mock their victims, detailing violent attacks in their songs. In recent months, the Fordham area has been living in fear, with the Slattery Gang making the neighborhood feel unsafe for many. Some gang members have even been caught firing guns in playgrounds and near school buses with children around.
They're shooting at each other with a yellow school bus filled with kids in between them.
In one especially terrifying incident, a 9-year-old boy had to call 911 for help after he found himself caught in the crossfire. The terror and recklessness of the Slattery Gang continue to shake the community to its core. You might look at Nay Benz and think she's the face of the entire Slattery Gang, that everything starts and ends with her, but honestly, that's just scratching the surface. This gang isn't a one-woman show, and it certainly doesn't stick to any particular mold when it comes to who's involved. Take Brianna Portalatin, for instance.
Brianna Portalatin, 8 months pregnant, was among other suspects brought out from a sort of criminal commune in a Bronx apartment. She was in handcuffs again.
She's only 19 years old and already 8 months pregnant, yet here she is, facing some pretty serious gun charges. According to the police, this isn't her first rodeo either. In fact, this is her third arrest on gun-related charges, and she's already built up quite the criminal history for someone so young. But what's even more interesting is that Brianna, despite her current condition, is allegedly tied to the notorious Slattery Gang as well. If you saw the footage from a recent police raid, you'd know she's no stranger to this life. Before they hauled her off to the squad car, she casually yelled, "Love you, babe," probably to her mom, who by now must be pretty used to her daughter's run-ins with the law and deep involvement in gang activities.
What's going on here?
I love you, babe.
A female suspect who's 8 months pregnant is brought out in handcuffs from an apartment.
Now, up until this point, we've mostly been talking about the adults, right? But here's where things take a wilder turn. This gang isn't just recruiting adults or even young adults, they're bringing in kids, and I mean really young kids. We're talking about teenagers as young as 13, all the way up to 17, getting pulled into this dangerous lifestyle. And it's not like these teens are just hanging out in the background while the older members handle the dirty work. These juveniles are reportedly the ones making some of the major calls. It's absolutely crazy to think about, but there was even a 15-year-old girl caught in high-definition 4K footage aiming a gun at her target like she's been doing this for years.
There's also a 15-year-old girl, shown here in silhouette, taking aim and firing.
The fact that someone so young is already this deep into the game is seriously mind-blowing, and it makes you wonder just how much worse things could get. This whole situation has sparked a lot of conversations, with people drawing comparisons between the Slattery Gang and some of the most infamous gangs in history, like the Bloods and Crips. Everyone knows just how deadly the Bloods and Crips can be, but here's the thing. Some folks are saying the Slattery Gang is like the female version of these two infamous gangs, and in some ways, they might even be worse.
This is one of the most violent crews that I've seen.
The level of violence, the number of young recruits, and the reckless behavior they exhibit, especially with kids being caught in crossfire and playgrounds turning into shooting ranges, make it clear that the Slattery Gang is not just another small-time operation. They're building a reputation that could one day rival the infamous Bloods and Crips, but with a more ruthless, more unpredictable edge to them. It's terrifying to think where this could lead, especially with the younger generation being pulled into it so deeply and so early on. The NYPD had finally had enough as the crime rates in the Bronx continued to spiral, especially with more and more reports pointing to women leading the charge. So after seeing things escalate, they decided to take action. Following an intense investigation that stretched out over 18 months, the NYPD managed to lock up 20 suspected gang members, including the infamous drill rapper Nay Benz and several of her female counterparts. According to the prosecution, this 18-month investigation uncovered a web of conspiracy involving the Slattery Gang. The gang was allegedly involved in obtaining guns and using them to commit acts of violence against rival gangs. And this wasn't just a few isolated incidents. Prosecutors linked the gang to 14 separate shooting incidents, a slashing that took place inside the Bronx Supreme Court, a gunpoint carjacking, multiple stabbings, and various cases of illegal gun possession. They also revealed that members of the Slattery Gang had been using social media, primarily Instagram and Facebook, to threaten rival gangs and hype themselves up, which helped fuel the violence. Not only that, but they were also posting drill rap videos on YouTube bragging about their shootings and mocking their oft rivals. As part of the investigation, authorities managed to recover 15 firearms, including handguns and pistols. While the spotlight often shines on the female members of the Slattery Gang, it's important to note that they're not the only ones wreaking havoc. The gang has its fair share of male members as well. For instance, on June 18, 2020, two defendants, King and Williams, ran toward a group of people playing cards at Morris Avenue and East 184th Street in Fordham Heights. King allegedly opened fire, shooting at least 6 times and hitting 3 people who weren't even involved with any gangs. The 2 suspects quickly fled the scene, but just minutes later, Williams was shot by a rival gang, leading King to allegedly return fire, escalating the chaos even more. That wasn't the end of their violent spree, though. Less than a month later, on July 11, 2020, King and another suspect, Charlie, made their way to East 194th Street and Briggs Avenue in Fordham Manor. Charlie, thinking he was firing at a rival gang member, ended up hitting an innocent passerby instead. Fast forward to January 27, 2023, and Charlie found himself involved in yet another violent altercation. This time, he and several others were inside the Bronx Hall of Justice when they spotted members of a rival gang. They didn't hesitate to confront them, and Charlie allegedly used a scalpel to slash one of the rivals, leaving the victim with a gruesome laceration that stretched from her chest down to her abdomen. The victim had to be rushed to the hospital and ended up needing 35 stitches to close the wound. Amidst all this violence, two women, Detective Lena Alexander and Detective Aaron Curry, stepped up in a big way. In May, they made history by becoming the first female team to lead a gang takedown for the NYPD Gun Violence Suppression Division. They played a crucial role in the investigation that led to the arrests and helped bring some sense of safety back to the community. Detective Aaron Curry, who grew up in East New York, Brooklyn, shared how personal this mission was for her, saying, "I was born and raised in East New York, so it's very near and dear to my heart, and I just wanted to make a difference and hopefully make the streets a little bit safer."
I was born and raised in East New York, Brooklyn, and it's very near and dear to my heart, and I just wanted to make a difference and making the streets hopefully a little bit safer.
The Bronx District Attorney D.A. Clark also weighed in on the issue in an interview with Fox 5. She explained that many of the young women getting involved in gangs aren't necessarily hardened criminals from the start. Some of them are afraid, some are forced to do it. Some of them are just curious, you know? They like the bad boys, so they want to run in those circles to see what it's like, she said. They may not necessarily be like that, but it's too late once you get caught up in it.
Some of them are forced to do it. Some of them just, are curious. They like the bad boys, so they want to run in those circles to see what it's like. They may not necessarily be like that, but it's too late once you get caught up in it.
D.A. Clark went on to highlight some of the underlying reasons why young women are being drawn into gang life. Fear, coercion, and curiosity are often the starting points, but deeper issues like poverty, unstable family environments, and mental health struggles also play a big part in pushing them toward these dangerous paths. For many, gang life offers a sense of belonging or a way to survive in tough circumstances, even though it leads them into situations they can't easily escape from once they're in too deep. The problem is bigger than just the violence. It's a reflection of larger socioeconomic issues that need to be addressed. Backing up what Clark said, Dr. LaShawn Paul, a clinical social worker, emphasizes how important it is to step in early if we can tackle these issues before young women get too deep into gang life. It's a key move to stop more violence and crime from happening down the road. The recent NYPD takedown of the Slattery Gang was a big win in the fight against the rising trend of young women joining gangs. By combining focused law enforcement actions with community help, there's a real chance to reduce gang violence and create a better future for the city's youth.